Welcome everyone to the Bird Nest. Today we'll be talking about tornado cash, and it's been a quite interesting week. On Tuesday, the Treasury sanctioned tornado cash over cybercrime concerns. So we'll be trying to dive in, get you a quick overview of what that means, what is happening in the world of crypto, whether you should be concerned or not, and yeah, we'll try to cover that as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So let's get started. All right, so welcome. Let's get started. Treasury sanctions tornado cash over cybercrime concerns. So these concerns have to do with North Korean hackers, especially. So if we go over here, crypto mixing service Tornado Cash blacklisted by the Treasury Department for alleged use in money laundering. So how does Tornado? It was blacklisted. What does that even mean? The U.S. Department of Treasury on Monday sanctioned the popular cryptocurrency mixer Tornado Cash, banning Americans, this is important note, from using a service that the government said launders the proceeds of cybercrimes. So that's definitely um, unique or something to be kind of mindful of. Despite public assurances otherwise, Tornado Cash has repeatedly failed to impose effective controls designed to stop it from laundering funds for malicious cyber actors on a regular basis and without basic measures to address its risks. Well, essentially, here the Treasury is asking Tornado Cash, a decentralized platform, to act in a centralized manner and decide who can use them and who cannot. If you have to KYC for a privacy mixer, it defeats the purpose of privacy. Anyways, that is kind of what is happening there. So, what does that mean for you? It's a big deal. So over here, Bowtied Iguana, love these crypto names, had a really great breakdown of what it means. Read this thread or go to jail for 30 years. And it's true. If there's one lesson you can take from this video, and only one, it is do not mess with the US. Do not mess with the Treasury Department. Recently, a huge developer in the Ethereum community was sentenced to jail for about 30 years because he gave a crypto conference in North Korea. And it's illegal. So, what's illegal? OFAC. Okay, what the heck is OFAC? OFAC is the Office of Foreign Assets Control. They administer and enforce sanctions against high-profile individuals, including major international terrorists, drug trafficking kingpins, and financial or political elite of certain countries deemed hostile to American interests. So, anyone that is hostile to the US can be put on the OFAC kind of do not interact list. So, the OFAC ensures that Americans cannot legally do business with Cuba, Iran, Iraq, North Korea without special government approval. OFAC maintains a list of specially designated nationals and blocked persons, SDN list. You can search the list here. So on August 8th, Tornado Cash and all the Ethereum wallet addresses associated with Tornado Cash and its smart contracts were added to OFAC's SDN list. This is what the issue is, or the kind of problem. All of Tornado Cash is blocked, can't be used by US persons, including their Gitcoin grants wallet. That's a big deal too, because they went after Gitcoin and their grants. So we scrapped the wallet info from Etherscan, and it is all their addresses totaling around 437 million of stablecoins, ETH, and wrapped Bitcoin. So that's a lot of money that has suddenly been put on this blacklist and cannot kind of legally interact with the US. It's an issue because this money can affect a lot of people. And you could be doing something completely not malicious, which is something we're going to go into in a second. So it is illegal for any US persons to engage in trade, economic transactions, or other dealings with any person, company, or country on the SDN list. And this now includes using Tornado Cash. A U.S. person is any citizen, resident, or company in the U.S. So this list continues. It is definitely worth a full read because it gives you a whole breakdown on what is happening. I won't be reading this because we want to cover a couple other things, but I will be linking it in the show notes. It's definitely worth a read if you have the time because it does break down pretty much everything you should be concerned about what this means. So over here on Dune Analytics, we actually have a breakdown of all the banned addresses. We can see there's a total of 81 banned addresses from USDC. Now we can see kind of every month there's a new set of banned addresses, banned USDC holders all over here. We can see how much money they have and whether they're banned. Circle is usually pretty quick to act on this. So just to kind of add some more context, only around 10% of the funds that are pooled in Tornado Cash came from hacks. This is according to Chainalysis, one of the biggest on-chain research companies that does do a lot of research on cybercrime and all of that stuff using crypto. The fact that only around 10% are stolen funds, that's huge. I mean, there is around 17% in sanctions, which is a gray area, and we have to dive into the reports there. But 10% in stolen funds is a lot, and at the same time, it isn't because 50% is in DeFi, and there are many, many legal reasons why you might want to use a mixer. For example, very basically, I am talking to you guys now and say I get paid. I do not want absolutely everyone to know all of my wallet history. I want to have a private wallet and maybe a public wallet. And you don't want those to be linked because with on-chain data, you can track absolutely everything. So let's move on to Alex. He actually is the CEO of Nansen, a great research company in crypto. And so some quick stats he pulled on Tornado Cash. About 75K was frozen, that is USDC, because USDC is centralized and can be frozen. 500K deposited in total, and there's a couple different depositing addresses. So if we see DAI is actually used 600 times more than USDC in Tornado Cash. So a lot of people were freaking out about, oh, USDC is getting blocked. They're going to block USDC for everyone. Tornado Cash is going to have an issue. Well, it's actually DAI is used so much more. We can see there's a couple different addresses here, but out of this 102 million, only, well, what is that? 0.3% is USDC. It is mostly all DAI. So people are using DAI, not USDC. There's a whole rabbit hole there that we can go into on whether or not Circle could actually sanction DAI. And then all of the backing in DAI, which is, I think right now it's around 50 to 80% of the DAI backing is in USDC, would be frozen, and then it would be under collateralized because you can't actually redeem DAI, and that's a whole rabbit hole. So if you guys have questions about that, do drop it in the comments, join the Discord. I can kind of dive into that, but we don't have time for that today. Next, let's cover Jeremy. So Jeremy is the CEO, co-founder of Circle, the creators of DAI. So he kind of broke down what is happening. Yesterday, the US Treasury designated for sanctions ETH addresses associated with Tornado Cash. As US regulated FI subject to Bank Secrecy Act requirements, Circle, together with our partner Coinbase, registered the movement of USDC funds and these sanctioned addresses, restricted. It is likely that nearly all responsible registered virtual asset service providers also took steps to block customers for transacting with these addresses. So we'll actually talk about this in a bit, but let's keep going here. The regulatory intervention of this case crosses a major threshold in a history of the internet and the history of open blockchain finance, with a major government obligating parties to outright block or limit the functioning of open source software in the internet. And this is very, very important to kind of highlight. It raises extraordinary questions about privacy and security on the internet and the future of public internet digital currency. We have noted the tension between privacy and security as a policy matter. Yesterday, it stopped being an abstraction with this movement. Separately, I've been sharing a blog, whatever. Well, he kind of covers it. It's a huge deal, and in this thread, he essentially breaks down that they had no choice but to comply with US regulations, which can bring up to 30 years in prison if they do not. So, Circle, they're saying our hands are tied. We can't do anything about it. We have to block addresses. Um, so it's like, well, okay, whatever. We know they're a centralized um, party, but it does highlight the need and the importance for decentralized, stable currencies in crypto. Again, another rabbit hole. Drop it in the comment if you want to talk about decentralized stablecoins, because that is huge, huge importance. But let's talk about something more fun. Anonymous user sends ETH from Tornado Cash to prominent figures following sanctions. So, as we learned, anyone that interacts with Tornado Cash is now legally breaking the law and can get up to 30 years in prison. It's a huge deal. So, what is someone doing anonymously online? Well, sending ETH to a bunch of addresses. So, Fatman, a notable individual and companies who receive funds from government sanctioned entities. So it's as if, for example, ISIS or not ISIS, anyone online that is bad is suddenly sending money to public figures because they are tainted funds. And you can't do anything. You can't deny the funds. You can't say no. You will just simply perceive it. And now you are directly connected to that law break. The thing is, this individual who is anonymous isn't actually breaking the law except for interacting with Tornado Cash. Tornado Cash is still available around the world, and it's really just if you relate with the US, you can get in trouble. So there's a whole situation there. But a lot of these public figures are related to the US. So Jimmy Fallon, Shaquille O'Neal, Puma, Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, Dave Chappelle, the Ukraine crypto donation wallet. So all of these wallets received sanctioned ETH, and then it creates this really weird situation for the US because now do they have to look into all of these public figures because they are directly connected to Tornado Cash and to a sanctioned wallet? It creates an interesting situation. However, I think the most pressing matter here is how this could be a government. We can get into our tin hats and everything, but the government could potentially sanction someone and then they themselves spread money, like happened here, to a bunch of different people. And then you are directly connected, and they have enough credible law or whatever the term is to arrest you because you have now been in contact with illegal entity. So this is really scary because they could do that now and you cannot deny the funds. But if, for example, you go on a flight and then they send you money from Tornado Cash, for example, it's essentially a sting operation and they can detain you without any credible situation. And that's the creepiest thing about it because when you sanction entities or protocols, you are essentially opening the floodgates for incriminating people and choosing to do it by yourself. And as we know, the US has a history of incriminating people that were not breaking the law, but because they just didn't like what they were doing. So this is really scary. This is really funny on the anonymous person airdropping 0.1 ETH to all these public figures, and they've continued to do it. The list goes on quite a bit more. It's really hilarious. But it's really scary how the government could actually leverage this, or any government, using sanctions list. So what happens when you try to sanction a protocol like Tornado Cash? The US government's unprecedented move to sanction a smart contract on Ethereum continues to produce perverse consequences. And here's what I'm getting into. On Monday, the US Treasury issued a blanket ban on crypto mixing service Tornado Cash. Circle, one of the issuing entities behind USDC, immediately banned 38 addresses that had connections to Tornado in their transaction history following the sanction. Anecdotal reports suggest that platforms and companies are also enforcing bans. Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets has put a massive hole in the center of the crypto economy by making it a felony to interact with Tornado Cash. Not only has it become harder to achieve transactional secrecy on the most used blockchain, Ethereum, but platforms and people now need to determine their exposure and take steps to mitigate potential regulatory action. It's a bit early to speculate here. Anyways, this goes on, but you get the point. It's an issue because now everyone is involved and people have to step in. So Tornado is a key component of Ethereum's money stack. It's not the only way to anonymize transactions on the blockchain, but it was perhaps the most used. It's likely vast majority of applications that support ETH have some exposure to the mixing service. Ethereum co-founder Vitalik disclosed he used the platform ahead of donating funds to Ukraine this year. So why would someone like Vitalik want to use Tornado Cash to donate? Well, Vitalik has a history of going to Russia. Vitalik has a lot of money, and maybe he doesn't want his private address to be directly connected to something like donation or Ukraine because, well, he doesn't want to expose himself like that. So just having basic privacy has to be a right, and this really goes against that, and it can be really scary. The floodgates it can open with uh, sanctioning just like that. And this is going to our next step. So some funds made it to Tornado Cash and Binance as well. So this is kind of a breakdown of how the funds have been distributed. Tornado Cash sends it to the center wallet and then spreads it out to a bunch of different parties. So it's been a whole situation, and now on to DYDX. So DYDX is a decentralized exchange. I'll cover it in brief, but essentially, DYDX started banning some users because they might have had some type of connection with Tornado Cash. Now, the founder of DYDX, Antonio, covers this a little bit. And this thread kind of is pretty clear. So this Igor person said, I have an open position on DYDX and I saw this message. My address never interacted with Tornado Cash, nor am I a citizen of any restricted country, but they are blocked. So what did Antonio say? It's that they don't blame Circle for doing it. Likely, they didn't have a choice. DYDX currently implements sanctions checks on its hosted matching engine. So it has to do with the infrastructure behind. We're looking into a potential issue with our compliance provider, possibly overfitting addresses related to Tornado Cash. So most likely, it seems that their infrastructure provider, just to be safe, blocked more addresses than it should have, just so that they are not linked and they don't get in trouble. So as he continues saying, the way these compliance providers work is usually about the number of hops away from the sanctioned address. So even if not literally using Tornado or interacting with some other sanctioned address, it may fit. So maybe you interacted with an address that in the past has interacted with Tornado Cash. Any kind of weird situation like that, you are getting sanctioned or semi-sanctioned just by knowing someone. Now, this is a weird rabbit hole to go down because, as we know, 6 degrees of separation in crypto. It's probably smaller because there's not even that many people in crypto. So it's an over sanctioning of addresses here, and it's going to be really interesting to see how that develops. So, what about you? What can you do personally? Let's get back to you. Well, one, don't use Tornado Cash. If you're in the US, you have to be really careful with what you do, how you do it. I would highly recommend having multiple wallets. You have your cold storage wallet which doesn't interact with most things, and then you have your hot wallets that you can use to interact with DeFi. Especially if you're in the US, you just have to be careful about all of these US sanctions that can really impact you. So just be mindful of not interacting with Tornado Cash, not interacting with right now, I guess, privacy. If you want privacy, there are incredible coins like Monero and Zcash and Secret Network that actually have really good built-in privacy. And well, they are most likely on the list for the US sanctions. But as of now, they are free to use and available. If you guys have more questions about Tornado Cash, I know I covered a lot. I was trying to get you as informed as possible because there's been a lot of overspill on this, and there's been a lot of different developments around this topic. So if you guys have comments, drop it, leave a like, join the Discord, let me know what I missed. Thanks for coming out. See you in the next one. Peace.